Looking for the perfect hidden gem for your next night out? Welcome to Almost on the Lake, where the food is delicious. The service is top-notch. And the atmosphere feels like home. Family owned and locally loved. Come see why everyone is talking about Almost on the Lake.
Nestled in the heart of historic downtown Wilkesboro, the 1915 offers a wedding experience like no other. Once a federal courthouse and post office, the 1915 combines rich history with timeless charm. From intimate gatherings to full-day rentals, we provide the perfect backdrop for your most cherished moments. With indoor and outdoor options, bridal and groom suites, every detail is crafted just for you. Make your wedding unforgettable at the 1915, Wilkesboro's historic wedding venue, where your story begins.
Lunch shouldn't be rushed and it should be savoured. Lunch just got better with Roselli's on 10th in North Wilkesboro. From Roselli's famous meatball subs to Philly cheesesteaks, chicken parm and more. Served your way, 6-inch or foot long. Are you craving pizza? Grab a personal 8-inch pizza with a fresh salad, all for just $12.95. Or enjoy lunch-sized portions of your favourite Roselli's pasta classics. And don't skip dessert. Trust me, Roselli's on 10th. Make lunch matter again.
Roselli's on 10th, come and taste the divine.
Join us on a captivating journey as we explore the charm, history, and vibrant culture of Wilkes County. Discover the hidden gems, inspiring stories, and remarkable people that make Wilkes a place worth knowing and celebrating.
Good morning, Tom Bartlett. Welcome to the Life in Wilkes studio.
Thank you, Carl. I'm so glad to be here. And let me just say, this is an interesting place. Just walking through is amazing.
Yeah, it is interesting. A lot of history. And you made the same observation that many people do about Tom Dooley and the Battle of the Alamo. Of like, well, not Davy Crockett. Yeah, Davy Crockett. Tom Dooley's in that.
Daniel Boone, yeah.
Daniel Boone. So Daniel Boone, that's right.
Something tells me there's a story about Tom Dooley that I missed on the way in.
Oh, there's a story. So it's Tom Dooley's season, of course.
Yeah,
They're getting,
right.
the Wilkes Playmakers are getting ready for the 25th season this year. An amazing story. Karen Reynolds did an incredible job with that play, obviously, because it's still going. And it's a great telling. And so that's happening. We have Daniel Boone things happening in the county with the Daniel Boone Heritage Trail, and maybe getting a things happening on that level. And then it's America 250. So lots of history going on.
And we just finished Merle Fest.
That's right. Did you go?
I did not go this year, but our church does support a lot of driving for, running vans and stuff.
Right.
So we had, I don't even know how many vans we had going.
Wow. It was an incredible year this year. So only a little rain, which is remarkable for Merle Fest. So that was a good thing. So we have a lot of music here and a lot of history and heritage. And you and I have a feeling we're going to spend more time together talking at other times, because if we keep going down the history trail, we'll be here till tomorrow. And you've got a 12 o'clock gig to get to.
I do, yeah, that's true.
So let's start off with the way we start off with everyone. I know a bit more about your past just because of mutual friends, but why don't you tell everybody who you are and where you're from? Tell us about your people and where you come from.
Oh, sure. Well, I'm what some people call one of those halfbacks.
Right.
Because I was born in New England and moved to Florida, and I came halfway back to North Carolina.
Oh.
But
that's a wonderful story. Some people think that's a pejorative term, but really it's not.
No, 5 generations or 6 generations back, my grandfather, that many back, signed the Declaration of Independence. And actually lived, I was born in a little town in New Hampshire, and he actually lived in the next town over. But my parents took us to Florida in 1972, and I was about 9 years old, and I grew up there. And but I've always kind of been drawn to the mountains, and I lived in Colorado for a while, came back from there, we came to North Carolina, and it basically raised our kids here in the Carolinas over the last 20-some years.
So you've been here a good portion of your life.
Well, I came here in 2003 to Wilkes.
Okay.
And I reestablished a small church with about 30 people called Celebration Church. And I was here for just over 9 years. And I left for 7.5 years and was doing a lot of work internationally and nationally and for ministry. And then came back 5.5 years ago and teamed up with the same fellas that was working with before. And our youth pastor that we'd hired 18 years ago became the lead pastor. He brought me back to co-pastor with him. And a local dentist, Dr. Chris Roberts, was part of our team. And so the 3 of us are the 3 elders of Celebration Church.
Oh, wonderful.
And we love working together. It's a great team.
Wonderful. I wasn't about to stop that roll you were on there because that was a great capsule of history. But period, we'll pick up right back here. But now, did you say that your way back grandfather signed the Declaration of Independence?
Right. So if you look at the last column on the right, top name is Josiah Bartlett. So in 1976, it was so cool. My grandmother got from the government this commemorative flag and plaques and as a centennial family or something or whatever it was.
Okay.
Yeah. And so it was a big deal in our family. And to know that I was born in the town just over from where he lived was quite remarkable.
Oh, wow. Well, we've officially tagged this show now, not only one of our faith stories, but an America 250 show.
How about that? Here we are.
There you go. There you go. Well, I had to get a clarification there because that was just too good not to go back and focus on that for a minute. So your music journey, you have some credentials at the end of your name, and there's some higher education involved on that journey.
Sure.
So talk about your interest in music before, your journey into the educational area, and then how that kind of changed or opened up your perspectives.
Yeah, Carl, it's really interesting because really nobody in my immediate family, my parents had 8 kids, was musically inclined. But I can remember at a very young age asking my parents, well, first, I saw the Vienna Boys Choir when I was a kid.
Oh, wow.
I'm going to say 5 or 6 years old, maybe younger. And I looked at my mom and I said, that's what I want to do. I was very young.
Right.
And at about the age of 9 or 10, I asked my parents to get me piano lessons. And my dad they couldn't afford it. My sister bought a piano from the neighbors. And for Christmas, I got 5 lessons. And that started my musical journey.
Was it intuitive from the beginning?
Yeah, I'm going to say I'm not some people say I'm a natural musician. I do play and I play out, but I felt like I always had to work pretty hard at it, but I was very passionate about it. And right into high school, interesting fact, I traveled in high school and out of high school with a musical team playing music around the country. And actually, on the 24th of this month, those guys are coming to Wilkes. We're doing a reunion concert on May 24th at 6 p.m. at Celebration Church. But we were high schoolers. I was the oldest guy in a Greyhound bus traveling the country at 18 years of age.
What type of music were you?
We did contemporary Christian and Southern gospel. And so we did everything from camps and churches and open air events. And we traveled from Florida all through the eastern seaboard all the way to California and back.
Did that plant the seed that would later bloom to where you said, I really got to work with these camps?
Yeah. Okay. There was a drawing. Well, there are a couple things. Number one, I couldn't find someone to teach me, and I wanted to learn music and instruments, and I love the piano and vocally. So I always felt like there need to be teachers, and a lot of kids look for that, or they want someone that will instruct them, and there's nobody there. And really, I know you can find piano teachers, but they're even hard to find as well.
Sure.
But it gave me the experience of performing nationwide, and at an early age, I felt like there was a stage presence that a lot of guys my age didn't have, just because of that experience. But cherished memories. Can't wait for the guys to come into town and relive some of those things from really over 40 years ago.
Did you have, when you were in that moment, if you go back in time and think about those highlights, did you stop and think, well, we're doing our version of the Vienna Boys Choir?
Yeah. I never thought of it that way, I guess, but there's something really, if you're a musician, you understand there's something about 4-part harmony when it's done well. We used to go to Ridgecrest, North Carolina from Florida. There'd be a music week there, and we would stand in the big auditorium in the stairwell, and we would sing our songs, and the reverberation would ring through the building. And to me, I don't know if it does this to anybody else, it moves me so deeply. It's a very spiritual thing. And I've found just personally over the years that music has a way of expressing more than mere words can express. Times of deep emotion or joy or sadness.
And that has a lot of power, doesn't it?
It has a lot of power, and I'm drawn to it.
I have some friends that have a group of 6, and they have shared with me that, because I said, where do you practice? Because they do a wide range of things. They said, well, we really try to stay in nice hotels that have a really nice stairway.
Yeah, that's exactly.
And he said, Carl, I can't explain it any other way in a lay term other than to say the music literally vibrates your bones.
That's right.
That's right. That's how it feels.
Yeah, we would show up when we were on the road. Just we'd pull into a Burger King or some place like that, and they'd see our bus. And you guys sing group? Yep. And we would sing so many times inside a restaurant. They would give us our food for free. So that was the best pay we got for traveling and singing.
Oh, that's great. So those guys that you traveled with then, did you keep up with over the years?
Oh, yeah. And we have a text group, and they're all pastors and ministers. One's a missionary. And I think we started in high school, actually. And then as time went on, we added guys that were from different parts of the country. But we have kept in close contact. One guy actually has passed on early. We were all on our way to college, and 3 of us were going to the same school, and he died on his way to college. Wow. And he didn't make it there, but the rest of us have stayed in touch.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Can you imagine, we have a lot to talk about, but can you imagine life without music?
No, it's a part of my life every day. Actually, there was a time in my life where I thought, I bet there will never be a day that I don't play the piano.
Right.
And it's just something that's in me that I love to do, and I play a lot of the instruments, but I'm really drawn to the keyboard.
Do you play some of the Southern gospel tunes?
Oh yeah,
You remember the four guys singing, the incredible piano playing.
I played that.
So you still can do that.
Well, I studied music in college, and I minored in piano. Okay. So I have more of a classical background, but since then I've kind of broadened out into jazz and blues, and I can still play the Southern gospel style. Right. We don't use it in church, but I do play about once a month with our worship band, which is a great experience. And my daughters are all worship leaders, and I still have one of them around here. Most of them are out of the house, but so when she leads worship at church, I'm her keyboard player, and it's a joy to do that with her.
Wow. That's incredible. I can tell your embodiment of music. It's evident. You smiled when you say the words. You smiled when you think about saying the words, I think. So that's a powerful thing. And maybe it's the feelings that make that happen. I've talked to a lot of entertainers and over the years, and they all talk about just how it makes them feel. And people that are otherwise on an individual day-to-day basis, they may not be the happiest people in the world.
Right. Well, I can tell you what gives me even greater joy. I love to play and make music, but when I see my students up there doing what I do, whether they're playing a guitar or a bass or drums or keyboard or a trumpet or whatever, I get as much enjoyment when I watch them. And my kids have all come up through this, and when I sit back and watch them, like, oh, this is awesome that they get to do and experience and love what I love too, and or to pass it on to young people is as thrilling for me as if I were personally doing it.
That's fantastic. Well, let's talk about. Let's jump into some of the work that you do at Celebration Church, and really all over the world. It sounds like over the years you've had a lot of outreach. So let's talk about that. I'd like to look at it from a standpoint of your youngest people, your camps, watching them grow, and then as we go through this, I'd like for us to talk about the power of music to change lives.
Oh, sure. Well, you know, in probably about 35 years ago, I noticed that the school systems, this was in Florida, were starting to cut the music programs. And I thought, this is not good because, you know, really music is the spice of life, and it adds so much. And the developmental things for young people are proven scientifically. So I started with a music and arts camp for children. And I'll just talk specifically about Wilkes because I started this here about 20 years ago.
Okay.
And the music and arts camp was a way to teach children expression, teach them how to develop their ear, and even introduce them to instruments, children. And
what age group are we talking?
So when I started, it was grade school. We'd have 100 kids in our music and arts camp. We call MAC camp. And so we began working with them. We branched out to dance, art, drama, puppets, now blacklight puppets, singing, and the older kids do photography and videography, and all in the effort of producing a program at the end of the week. And we used to take it out on Friday night in the public square, but with the blacklight puppets now, we have to do it inside. So now we offer 4 camps. The youngest is what we call mini Mac, 4 to 7-year-olds.
Okay.
These kids come in, and movement. And Carl, I've noticed, because I used to do a preschool program 30 years ago, when children that are deficient in their rhythm and like musical notation, hearing and matching pitch, when they are challenged at a young age, they can get it and they can overcome those deficiencies. So we do a lot of, hey, follow me, do what I do, watch me, sing this pitch, learn this rhythm.
And if you're doing that at that young level, you see that it's working.
Well, I see I can tell you I've tracked children. I've got one girl right now in my homeschool band that when she came in, she was young. Rhythmically, she was challenged. This past Monday, and I'll work with her again today, I was thinking to myself, my, how she has grown. Because kids like that don't get help early on typically fall behind and they can never become a musician. But it helps with coordination. It helps with cognitive thinking. The synapses in the brain that are developed because of music help them intellectually as well. So the 4 to 7-year-olds come in. It's a half-day camp. And in that camp, they actually learn to play the ukulele. And if you know Larry Skipper, he's part of our church. Right. And Larry and I work together with those younger kids. And then we have a team of people that do. But they do more communal work in there with rhythm instruments, dance movements, learning how to clap rhythms in a very creative fashion. I don't use a typical, so we developed our own.
So that's at your entry level, right?
Yeah, 4 to 7-year-olds. So
share with us in a bit of a broad statement. When they come in, you observe. How many are in the class?
Usually about 30.
Okay, so you got around 30 kids in the class, never having had this experience before.
Yeah, some of them. Yep.
But is it a blend?
Yeah, so there's a range for that group, so 4 to 7. So some children will come to Mini Mac every year for like 3 years, and then they'll go on to the Mac camp. But they learn and they get better at it as they do. They're also learning vocal production at a child's level. So it's just a really good, it's so much fun, and they get a great foundation.
Share with us, if you would, the change that you see happen, not just in someone learning to play the ukulele or whatever instrument, or they're learning the notes, they're doing that part, but their overall you know, the way they carry themselves.
Well, let me give you an example. A young boy named Eric. Eric came in about 2 or 3 years ago and was very, not very social. And he would sit in the back of the room and he would not participate. But his mom was like, I really want him to come out of his shell. So the first year, that was Eric. The second year, Eric was sitting with the group. Now he's in public school, or he's in Christian school, but his mom told me he auditioned for a solo in their play at the school, which is light years from where he was.
Right.
And he used to never really communicate with me. Now he runs up to see me when I see him at church, and he's just blossoming. And I believe that not only is it the music, but when you have our philosophy is that this is going to be the most encouraging week in a child's life. And we train our leaders, encourage these kids, affirm them in what they're doing. And it is the most encouraging week of their year, probably. And so that encouragement helps them to blossom. And I could tell you the stories about that over and over again.
Sure.
In fact, let me share with you a story of one of our high schoolers.
I was getting ready to graduate there. So,
I'll tell you, because KJ, unfortunately, he and his brothers, their mother passed during COVID. And for the first year that I knew him, I never heard him say a word. But he came into the homeschool music program, came into the camps, and he just graduated high school. He is now leading the beginning band. He's also teaching in our youth ministry at 18 years of age and speaking, and the music has changed his life. He was very reserved. He was almost nonverbal. He'd never spoke to me. Now he's kind of my right hand with these kids. And I told him, I said, KJ, I have seen an amazing transformation in you. And I often think, what if he didn't have this opportunity, and his brothers? And now he's an amazing young man that's leading even in our oldest group.
How does he articulate that to you? Has he articulated his feelings about that journey and remembering where he it was completely out of his element, and now he's doing what he's doing? Has he shared that?
We haven't talked about that, but he affirms when I tell him that. But what I notice about him is before, children with autism tend to be very not emotional. Now he communicates verbally very well. He smiles, and he is expressive in that, and he's like commanding the room, and it's a different person that I met just 5 years ago.
That's so powerful, Tom, because autism, there's certain disabilities that I think adults, shame on ourselves, we do not acknowledge and celebrate people in who and what they are and what they can become. So you're describing something that music has the power
touches them deeply
to touch them deeply and allow them to do things that maybe they
particularly for him, he came in on the trombone in our homeschool band program, and then he learned keyboard in the summer camps, and now he plays bass guitar with the adult band once a month in church, and he plays drums very well. It's like a gift, and that's why I say when I see these kids, it really blesses me as much as if I'm playing, and I love to play. But there's another group. So Mini Mac, the Mac camp, these kids are learning really to get in front of people, and we call it a performance camp. So we tell people, don't put your kids in if they're not going to perform, because we feel like that's like the icing on the cake. We're teaching them to project and how to sing and how to play and do these things. So they can choose an instrument, bass guitar. No, in Mini Mac, it's guitar, drums, or keyboard, or for Mac camp. Let me get my camps right. And in that camp, they don't perform on those instruments, but it's a basic level introduction to those instruments, and then they perform through drama and singing and all the other things.
So they're perfecting their keyboard work.
They're getting ready.
And they're being pushed in another area of expression themselves.
Exactly.
Oh, that's fantastic.
And then from there, by the time we get to middle school, because we have so many teenagers that are so proficient, I mean, we have 5 worship teams, and every one of them are littered with teenagers playing at an adult level because they've come to these summer camps. So
are people amazed at that?
Every week. People are like, how many teenagers are in this church and how many can play? You know how many churches in the area that would love a bass player or a keyboard player or a drummer? And we send them out all the time, but we have an abundance because we've raised them there. But we now have a camp called Camp Rhythm, and it's a non-performance camp. But we found that so many people wanted to go into Camp Rock, which is our highest level. They weren't proficient enough on an instrument. So Camp Rhythm happens at the very first camp of the summer, in this first week of June or second week of June this year, and it's a half day, but from 9 to 2, learning what we call the Nashville number system. Learning the basics of rhythm, and they get to practice everything on either bass guitar, acoustic guitar, drums, or keyboard. And we bring in professional, usually degreed teachers that know the system that I've developed to teach them that week. And these kids really advance. And then they can audition to be in a group with Camp Rock if they're ready. But if not, they can still sing and do other areas of Camp Rock.
All of this is going on in the same summer period?
Yeah, from June to the very end of July. Well, Camp Rhythm will be the first camp. Mini-Mac is the youngest.
Okay, so Mini-Mac and then Camp Rhythm. So you're doing that. So you can see people progress in that summertime experience.
Well, Carl, there are worship leaders in this community, musicians that have come through our camps. So I've seen them from the beginning stages all the way into the professional area.
That has to be so gratifying for
It's
you.
very gratifying because I always feel like as a pastor, I feel like the mission of the church is reproduction. We reproduce the love of Christ. We reproduce those that do what we do. We have a large preaching team at the church. We're reproducing preachers and musicians. And I just believe that not only is my personal calling, I think it's the calling of the church.
The power of music, the power of performance. Maybe if we're just more embodied with those ideologies and experiences, maybe we have less depression. Maybe we have less lack of hope.
Yeah.
Is that
well, imagine a child that doesn't know how to deal with certain emotions. For instance, these young boys, I said their mom passed away, unfortunately, during COVID. But the ability to sit on an instrument and express something that is both emotional and spiritual is very therapeutic. And it's a way of saying something without words. And I've seen that over and over again. And I've experienced that personally.
How?
So, for instance, in dark times of my life, the times of depression, I'll sit at the piano and I'll compose whatever, or I'll play whatever I feel. And I can walk away from that and think, I've just left something there. And it is very therapeutic for me personally. But it's also the other side of it when you're performing and playing with a band or a group and you have those moments that are just moving. It's also therapeutic and healing for those that are listening. So music is a two-way street. The performer and the listener are touched.
Is it possible that the people who are performing, if they've gone through these steps, whether with your program or wherever that has happened, but they've had these different level of growth experiences, that their empathy and their capacity to perform and let that emotional thing out. You know?
Well, let me let you in a secret. The very best performers, composers, and musicians that I've worked with are people that deal with dark times from time to time, but they reach deeply to compose through that, and they play through that pain or those emotions, and I find them to be amazing musicians. And we often talk about that, even our upper level, about musicians. You have those moments of dark times, and how do you deal with that? And music is a component, and obviously prayer is too.
Right.
But yeah, definitely.
But it's an actual tactile therapeutic event that can take place.
Exactly.
You can allow that pain to be there, and you can acknowledge it and then kind of push it away. Right?
Exactly.
Because of what you're doing.
Yeah.
That allows it to go because it doesn't want to hang around you feeling good.
Well, I think God is the God. He's the God of creation, created even the music, the sounds. There are certain things that are pleasing to us, and there are certain things that are not. And if you look back in the Old Testament, King Saul would be troubled, and David would come play his harp.
Yes.
And it would bring soothing to him, and I'm sure David was soothed by it as well.
Yes. Saul had problems later
Right.
on. But David did bring that peace.
He did.
Wow. Well, you said something that I think is so important for humanity, society, for all of us in church, those who aren't in church, but to know that those dark times, call it depression, call it whatever, working through it is there is liberty on the other side. And I'm sure you see this. You've seen it many times, if not all the time, that there are people that have been caught in this despair, that tough moment, for a great portion of their life.
Right. Well, I think even adults, Carl, could take music lessons, and I've taught adults into their 50s and 60s how to play the piano, and it could be very helpful for them because, like I said before, and there's a famous quote, and I don't remember who said it, but music expresses more than mere words. And it lets out something that maybe you can't, qualify in just a statement, but it's something larger than that. And you can express through that. It could help. But there are a lot of teenagers today that are struggling, I think more than ever. Sure. And those that find the camaraderie of being in a group, find healing in that. There's something also very unifying. Like when you're playing in a band, like I have our homeschool band concert is this coming Monday night. So when the kids get together and they're following a conductor, they are doing something that is more unified than almost anything else in their life. They're waiting, they're playing together, they're waiting for that cue, they're focused on their part, but they realize there's a bigger part here in the sense that we are all a group and we're individuals. And that there's power in that. And I believe that kids that are in those settings, choral settings, instrumental settings, and I was an athlete, and even in athletics as a wrestler, I knew my part was important. I had to win, but the team needed to win. Yeah. And you get that in music. It's so powerful.
When you were younger and you were an athlete and you wrestled, you understood at that moment. Now, were you doing music then as well? Was music part of your life also?
Yeah.
Okay.
I was president of the concert choir in high school and college, but I was also a wrestler in high school and college. So I had this dichotomy of he's a jock, but he's also kind of a music geek.
Right.
But I loved it.
Right. So you were getting your frustrations out one way or the other.
That's true. But I wasn't a wrestler. I was a wrestler.
The next interview, we're going to be talking about the boxing club and wrestling club. Tom, what you doing now? Well, we just had a great camp, but these kids, I found out they can really box.
That's funny.
No. Oh, wow. But it's so real, though. I mean, having this conversation, I think it's important because you're a pastor of a church that's well known in the region, and you have some national acclaim as well. And that's nice. But to have a conversation that embodies not only a spiritual conversation, but these things that we can do to live our lives in a better way. Some people, that may not sound right, but I think it's correct in a better way or a more fulfilling way.
Well, but you learn discipline. And, people that send their kids to our camp, they don't have to be Christian per se, but it is a Christian environment.
Sure.
Like I said, the most encouraging week of the year. But I've seen these, we work in the slums of India. We've done camps in China and Africa, Haiti, and other countries. And I've seen the needs of those children are very similar to the needs of our children here. And the skills that we teach our kids here, we teach there. We have to modify it. Here we have these very expensive puppets. There we bring sock puppets, things like that. We use sticks for rhythms and stuff like that. But it's gratifying no matter the culture, and even if there's a language barrier. And we take children with us, like teenagers, to serve in these camps overseas, and that's a great experience.
Wow. Let's go back in time. We're going to talk about what you're doing now, but just to kind of help us understand this very human experience that the musician wrestler had with him, and he took to another country, and you're working with the kids there. Compare those emotional pieces, the children there, were they really that much different?
Mm-hmm.
Take away the sticks or the whatever, the differences of instruments that you might use, but that human person.
Yeah. Well, musically, no, but I will tell you, India and China, I saw some very distinct things. In China, for a long time, people could only have one child. And I noticed that the children that came in, think about this, one child, that means they have a set of parents and they have two sets of grandparents with that one child. And those kids, not that they were rude, but they were definitely different than children that had a kind of a pecking order in their home. These kids, I would say, were spoiled in a lot of ways. They were given everything. In India, Carl, the most amazing thing is we'd have a camp of 500 kids. We started one camp where we had 300 kids show up, and we thought, what are we going to do? We don't have room for more. We took these little bandanas, and we put a bandana around their wrist, and we said, you can't come back unless you have that. Well, they went home, tore those in half, and brought a friend. In this one camp, barely room for 300, we wound up with 500 children. But here's the thing that was so unique. Those kids, like we would bring them a banana leaf with some rice and an egg at the end of camp. And I remember one time, because of the rain, the food was held up. Those kids sat what we would say Indian style, like that's like our Indian here in America. They would sit there. I saw for over an hour and a half, and not one time did they, hey, he touched me, or he's looking at, no, they sat quietly, still, very disciplined, and just waited for their food to come, and they're never a discipline issue. And our kids today, and these kids don't have the video games, they don't have all the things that our kids have. I notice kids in the States are bored unless there's something in their hand. We go to these other camps. I've done a camp in Haiti where the drum sets were pots and pans that we practice on. And I had 2 drum sets with 100 kids in this camp. And then, but we come here, we've got 8 drum sets, and they're going in one room, and kids are taking turns. And there's a difference culturally.
Sure.
But at the heart of it, the children are the same. They want to learn. And in every situation, there are children that stand out like there's a natural musician right there. They just have it within them. I see that all the time.
So you're seeing that without regard to where you are?
No matter what, yeah.
Yeah, that's nice,
you can
right?
imagine, yeah.
Does it feel a little different, though, when when you're here in the States and you have all of the instruments, you have everything at your disposal, and you go to a place that's not there, but seeing those children learn to do something, and their sense of gratitude for that. I have to imagine that's an impressive moment.
They're very grateful. And the last camp we did in India last summer, we actually started a little church in a southern region of India that my son-in-law is from India, and it's a whole nother story. My daughter met him her senior year in high school when I took her to play some music, but his father is a pastor there, and his grandfather planted a church back in the 30s or 40s. He became a Christian through the English that went there, but we brought in a drum set and a keyboard and a bass guitar and a guitar. And so this is the first time that we've actually incorporated like Western instruments, which they all want to learn. And we were able to leave those instruments there and then we go back and work with them. But we also incorporate the Indian drum, the tabla, and Indian dance and things like that. But the Western culture has so permeated, they listen to contemporary music like we do in the States. So they want to learn those instruments. Pretty cool. And it was very gratifying to leave the instruments at the little church where the kids could come in this little village and they could use them throughout the year.
Wow. Do you think that traveling to other parts of the world, having these experiences, yes, you have your academic credentials. Yes, you have that experience, but then you're also human.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And that commonality that we all have is our feelings. And wow, that was such a great trip.
Yeah. Well, when I was in this little village, I won't say where it was in India last summer, I have a daughter with Down syndrome. She's 14, and they brought a little girl in with Down syndrome. She was sitting on the front row, and I just, like, a lot of Down's kids are very musical. They're drawn to music. And I saw this little girl, and her eyes were lighting up with the music. And I'm thinking of my own daughter, who just loves to sing and dance and just perform like that. And I thought, what a great gift. I don't know that she's ever had that experience before, that little girl in the village. I took a picture with her, and it's special to me because I thought that's really amazing.
That touched your heart in a few ways.
It touched me in amazing, deep ways. And in the church itself, the founder, my son-in-law's father, he put up each corner of the church was dedicated, one to a medical, one to education, but one of them was for special needs children. And he put a plaque up, and he put my daughter's name, Kai Bartlett. And I thought, wow, she'll never go to India, but her life is making an impact. And there are Downs and other special needs children in that village, and the church is offering ministry and service for them. Yeah.
It's an underserved part of our population that people are who it's not something that they experience in their family, and they don't know how to interact. They look at it in strange ways. I mean, how do we? A long time ago, I said to myself, well, look, if love conquers all and blessed are the peacemakers, then okay, I can work on those things. Focus on that. So in doing that, I've seen a lot of people, a lot of different kind of people. And when you eat with people who are different and you talk with them, you observe their culture and their traditions, and you realize, yes, there are differences, obviously, but there are in that what we wear and everything part of us, but that inside part of us, the similarity is remarkable.
Well, the hopes and dreams are the same. Every mother loves their children. Every father wants to protect and provide for his children and his wife. And I go into the slums where basically one house begins where one ends. It's a shanty. It's a piece of metal or wood, and they have their own little spot there. And yet I find in those villages, Carl, that the peace and camaraderie, there's not the tensions that we feel a lot of times here, but every aspiration is to get out of that slum and to do better for their family. And when we go in and we teach more than just music, and when we give and help, and I'm all about a hand out, but I'm more about a hand up. And when you teach, like in Haiti, where we have a job retraining and teaching people how to sew and how to bake and all of that, we come in and do a music camp, but there's so much more that's happening to help people kind of up and out of that poverty.
So just some basic life skills can really make a difference.
But everything from automotive repair to, like I said, sewing and they have chicken farm, that kind of thing, learning skills that you can produce with. And many times that's all people need.
What do they say? Teach a man to fish.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
That simple idea. Wow. Do you find that as a pastor now and as a music man extraordinaire to the world, do you find that the deeper you get into this, as the years pass, as the hair shifts and all those things, do you find that you're I don't know, I was going to say, does your soul seem deeper, but does your understanding and your compassion, has it shifted? I mean, do you feel like because of all those experiences, because of those observations, because of the interactions, because of the hugs and the families and seeing these generational changes begin to take place, how has that changed you?
Yeah. Well, I will say a couple of things. Number one, there's two sides of that. I volunteer for all the music I teach, and sometimes I see, well, let me just put it this way. I started out teaching piano lessons, and I taught for free, and all of my students dropped out years ago. Then I started charging $20 a lesson, and they never missed. And so it taught me something about value, and when I do this. But I'm in that stage of life. If I died today, I feel like I'm so fulfilled, in what the Lord has allowed me to do. But I keep thinking to myself, wait a minute, it's not over yet. Right. And I'm in that legacy stage where I'm like, I want to pass this on. My oldest daughter, she can lead all these camps without me. She does it internationally. I have a new...
And she enjoys it.
And she loves it.
Yeah.
I mean, she would do that full time. She's an English teacher, elementary, middle school, and she's taught high school. But if she could do that full time, she would. I've just recently brought an intern in who is a fine pianist, and he's also into the tech world. But I'll be transitioning him to take over for me as I focus more on leadership development and some international and national things. So I'm gratified, but at the same time, if I'm just honest, I'm sometimes a little bit ticked. I don't know how to say it. Yeah. That some parents don't take advantage of something that is virtually free. I know the camps cost. Right. We charge $25 for choir or $25 for a band for the whole semester. Right. We just need to buy some music stands or buy some music, but virtually free, and nobody's turned away. If they say we can't afford it, nobody's turned away. I sometimes wonder, come on, parents, the opportunity is phenomenal. And those who take advantage of it, there's some they'll never miss because they've been a part and they understand. So I just wish that sometimes I get a little bit aggravated with like, man, I wish more people would know and take advantage of this because it's an amazing thing. And not everybody is musical. Some are just athletic. But if your kids have a propensity toward that or desire, I can think of nothing better to do than get them in these summer camps and let them learn because they will grow. Yes,
and music, of course, we've talked for 40 minutes about the power of music to change. And, for an athlete, you had both sides of it. And just think for parents, if they really got supportive of the music side and the creative side, there would be far less hospital bills for muscle repairs and replace hips down the road.
But I mean, like I said, scientifically, even cognitively, their kids are going to do better. And so learning an instrument, and we use what we do a lot, Carl, because not everybody can sit down and play the piano, but everybody can make rhythm with sticks. So everybody that comes to every camp gets a pair of drumsticks, which I'm sure the parents love at home.
Oh, sure.
Not like giving them a drum set, but when they learn the patterns, left and right, paradiddles and flams, and different movements with the drums, there's a very tactile response and participation from the earliest age. You don't have to play the guitar to make music with sticks. And so we're wiring the brain by teaching certain movements, right, left, and now left, right. And there's a lot of science behind it. But it actually is helping the brain to develop. And these kids come back to it. And we've got kids in our homeschool band playing flute and sax that also play drums now and play keyboard. And it's like they can just take to any instrument because they got this at an early age. And it transfers to everything.
Wow, this lifelong appreciation for music, performance. That took me back for a moment. Several years ago, we did a broadcast special around Alzheimer's.
Yeah.
And I visited with researchers at Emory University, Eastern, a lot of very smart people talking about the research, what was happening, and more than that, I learned the basics. I learned what this really is, and Alzheimer's is different than just dementia.
Right.
You've got these different things going on. But one thing that was totally eye-opening to me, and it was an emotional moment, we were at a senior center, and they had a choir,
right.
And it was all Alzheimer's patients. And there was a gentleman. So they come in, many of them are in wheelchairs or walkers. They get in their place, and then they sit down, and it's just like there's no expression, nothing. Yeah. There was a gentleman that he walked in, and he sat, pretend it was like a choir setting in church, and it wasn't, but that was kind of the setup. And the lady that was the director, she said, I don't remember the gentleman's name now, but he said, Mr. Smith, would you give, the prayer? And here he was sitting there also, almost you would look and it's like a catastrophic state. It was it was nothing, no expression. when she said those words to him, his eyes opened, he stood up. He gave the most eloquent prayer. I mean, it was like out of a movie. I mean, just something that was it was very poetic. It was deep. When he finished, he sat down and he went back.
Yeah.
Then the choir.
Right.
The rector's standing, and then she taps on, then they they come alive.
Yeah.
And then they sing. It was a beautiful performance.
Wow.
And I learned by talking to the researchers that there's a piece of the brain that the music lives in.
Yeah.
And that's one of the last things to go.
Right.
And
my mom died with Alzheimer's, and I can remember the week that she died, we ran down to Florida, and I was next to her bed. I would sing songs that she loved, and she knew every word. She didn't always recognize who I was, but she knew every word. My dad too, and so there's a piece of that. And we take our musicians into nursing homes, and I've played piano, and I go in and play the old time songs, and they just sing along and love it. And they do. They remember every word.
That has to be validation for the idea that music, when it becomes part of your life, it's really deep embedded.
Yeah.
And it can see you through some very difficult times,
Yeah.
which I think you were talking about.
Well, it is. And I think, music transcends more than we understand. There's a very physical thing. There's the brain development, but there's a place to tap in, even when you're older, if you have Alzheimer's or whatever. But, I believe God is the author of all things, and he created music. Matter of fact, I was telling my students, I teach a lot of music theory. When I was in college, my philosophy professor said, give me a proof for the existence of God. Give me something I've not heard. So I made recordings, and I wrote a paper on the proof of the existence of God through music, repeating patterns, and just things that were very technical. I got a C on the paper. And I went to his office and I said, how could I get a C? And when I explained it to him, he didn't understand. Once I explained to him what I was trying to convey, which in terms that he was never familiar with, he gave me an A. But the concepts and the creativity and the layers and the frequencies, and I mean, even the universe is humming on a certain frequency.
Yes.
And so there's that external, and there's that little internal part of who you are that's very musical and responds to music from the earliest age of child all the way through life. When my kids were born, I wrote a piano piece I called October, and I have 5 children born in October, and I have one, the last one, November 3rd. She didn't make it, so now I got to write another song.
Right.
But I would play that song, very soothing and beautiful. And you can watch a child, when the music starts, it just relaxes them. And the same is true with elderly people that maybe they can't talk very well, but the music can touch them. And so I love it. And I think it's great for our kids to learn. I think it's great for them. And like I tell them all the time, look, I'm an athlete. I was, but I'm not wrestling anymore today. But I'm still playing music. And you can play music your entire life in your church group or community group or just for your own, enjoyment, but you don't have to give it up. And I still have pieces that I'm trying to master, classical pieces. It's a lifelong pursuit. I don't ever want to stop.
Yeah. Do you find yourself when you're working on those classical pieces, you get caught up?
Yeah.
It's this thing you haven't finished, but you get caught up into it.
Yeah.
Does it has the power to transcend us, doesn't it?
Right, yeah.
I was watching Jens Kruger. I've known Jens and Uwe for a long time, and I was watching a performance recently, and you're familiar with their music, and,
sure.
And they were doing one of their pieces that, is not from around here, but sure does sound good.
Yeah.
And I found myself, just sitting there. It was a little reasonable crowd, but not you weren't elbow to elbow, and I just closed my eyes. Yeah. And the music took me on this journey, and it was so peaceful.
Yeah.
I just forgot where I was at, know. Or I didn't forget. I just was somewhere else.
Sure.
It wasn't like, I forgot. It wasn't that. It was you were transfixed and taken. So that's what you do as well.
Yeah. So music has this ability to take you on a journey, and when you combine it with words, then there becomes this powerful expression of what you're trying to communicate. You know, even the ancient hymns, a lot of them, you know, for at least Reformation hymns, a lot of them came out of like bar tunes that they would take and put them, you know, their theology to, because it was the music of the people. And that type of thing sticks a memory with music. So I can hear, like there's one particular group I love to listen to, I hear one chord, there's one particular song, and I know that song, and it brings back so much memories. Even when I was traveling with our group, we'd play that song.
Right.
That one, it's a minor chord with a certain colored notation to it. It's like boom, I know that song, and it brings me to a moment and a time and a memory that's very amazing.
Wow.
Yeah.
Tom, this moment has been amazing.
Thank you.
It's been great chatting with you. I wanted to do this for a while, and now we have. And we talked about the living of the part of the church that you're involved with, not even talking about the church that much.
Yeah.
But people can see you on the platform and hear your music if they go where?
Well, Celebration Church is just up from the hospital in Wilkes County, the old Union Elementary School.
Okay.
We've converted it. And so I preach about every other week and with Pastor Brian. And then I play once a month, or if I'm needed more, I'll play occasionally like bass or something else, but keyboard.
Yeah.
And so, but it's a contemporary church. But I'll tell you, it is growing so fast. We are expanding, doubling the worship center and other areas. So it's been really amazing to see.
Yeah. It's making your heart happy?
It makes my heart happy because I loved Wilkes and I hated to leave when I did. But I was so joyful to come back 5.5 years ago, and I still pinch myself and think, I'm back here, and I love the community. I love the team that I get to work with, and I love to be able to do, if I were preaching every Sunday, there's no way that I could do all these camps and the homeschool choir and the 2 bands, but I have the freedom to do that. And so it just affords me the opportunity to use all the skills that God has given me and to pass it on.
Well, I'm glad you came back. You know, that's the ideology of the halfbacks. You were up there, and that was too cold to go down here and warm and kind of, you know, get a tan perpetually and relax. And then you're like, wait a minute, I'm not ready to quit.
Right.
So then
right.
You come back to where the action is, right?
Exactly. And I hope I've got about another 5 years at least to do this, maybe more, but I'm enjoying it.
All right. We'll be optimistic. I'm going to say see you next time.
Well, I'd love to come back.
All right. Sounds great. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Thank you for spending time with us on Life in Wilkes. We value you as a viewer and appreciate when you share the show with your friends and family. Be sure to bookmark our channel and join us again on the next episode of Life in Wilkes.